Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. Welcome to a new video. Today we're doing another video in our sensory series. Today's video is going to be about tactile input. How might you know if your child needs a little more tactile input than is typical? Well, your child might touch things, a lot of things, and might prefer things with very interesting textures. Your child might run her fingers along the wall as you're walking along at the store or at your grandma's house, whatever. Your child might rub bumpy things along his face or rub interesting textured things in her hands. Your child might like to roll her whole body on the grass or in the sand. These things are all not odd because textures are fascinating. But if your child is doing these things, there is a chance that your child could benefit from purposeful inclusion of more tactile input into her day. We are going to talk about how to do that. As you may know from the last videos that I did in this series, what I normally do is break up the recommendations into two sections, two different kinds of strategies. The first strategy is that we include more of this type of input throughout a child's day. In this category, I'm going to recommend different kind of toys. Toys, for example, that might have, these are vintage, these belonged to my dad when he was a child, but you know, Legos, things with bumps on them. These have a very nice texture. Even the can has a nice texture. I don't like how metal feels, but I do like how cardboard feels. And these have a cardboard canister, which is really nice to touch. So that is a sensory experience in itself. You might choose to have some of these types of balls in your child's room. Of course, balls are always a little tricky because our kids like to throw them. And that can be violent and it can harm other people. But for the most part, it's pretty safe. Those are very squishy. These are sold by a company called ELP for ages 3 months plus. So I think they should be safe for most children. Anything that's kind of squishy. This is a cute little squishy guy. He's a mummy that I got as a sensory gift for, he came in a kit. There was a vampire, a black cat, a mummy, a whole bunch of other Halloween-y type creatures that I got for my students as gifts. But this mummy was left over. So cute. Maybe you can allow your child to play in the water. That is a really good thing if you have a water table or a sensory table of any kind. Put some ice in there, put some water in there. Maybe not at this time of year. Play in the snow, put some sand in there. Any way that your child throughout the day can have an experience of more textures. I also think it's a great idea to perhaps put some textures on the wall. In my last classroom, before I moved across the country, my plan was to put different textures on different portions of the wall so that as kids are interested in adding some more textures to their day, they can run their hand along the wall. And maybe there will be part that is smooth like velvet, and part that is smooth like drywall, and part that is bumpy because it has maybe, what's that stuff everyone wants to take off their ceilings? Popcorn ceiling spray on it, but it's bumpy. Or maybe we have one section that is sandpaper. And that can be very interesting too. Perhaps if this is something your child needs more of, perhaps this is how you decorate his room with different tiles of different textures. Probably at chair rail height or below, because your child is probably not 8 feet tall or however tall your ceiling is. Keep that in mind. The idea here is that we're giving our child the opportunity to touch things of different temperatures and different textures and different resistances. That's one of the reasons something squishy like this is really good for tactile input, because it's a different resistance from a desk or a book or that kind of thing. It feels different, so it's giving us a different sensory experience as we play with it. I also recommend letting your child help you clean. This is from a children's cleaning kit that I have. Actually, it was a hand-me-down toy from my brother and his family when their girls got too old for it. And I think it's absolutely adorable. This piece is the dusting piece, which I might actually use because it looks like it would work really well. There's also a little tiny broom. What else is there? A little tiny mop, a little tiny sweeper thing that's not a broom, but you sweep up crumbs with it. So it's a cute, really cute set, very sturdy, made out of wood, and this one has a little crazy top, like a little, maybe he needs a haircut. But the texture of it is very nice, and I think it would be great to have your child help you clean stuff, because we get the texture of the cleaning equipment. This part's smooth, this part is fuzzy. But also, if your child gets excited about breadcrumbs on the floor, then sweeping those up is fun. Even brushing them up with your hand into the dustpan might be a great sensory experience for somebody who likes the texture of little pieces of grit. There are all sorts of different textures that our kids crave. This is actually an area where I have needed more input my whole life. I did very strange things to get more sensory input in the tactile realm. And in fact, now when I am in an online meeting, I rub my fingers along this metal part because the texture is nice and it helps me to feel focused, to feel calm, and to be able to pay attention a little bit better, which is something that we definitely want for our kids. So if you notice your child doing something with her hands, doing something with the hem of his shirt or something along these lines, try to find ways to meet those needs throughout the day that maybe will mean less. If there's distractions involved in whatever it is your child does do, less distractions for the child, but for other kids too. However, if that sensory behavior is not distracting anyone, in fact, it helps our child and it doesn't bother anyone else, then we don't need to change it. We just, unless, and I mean, in my case, I did some sensory behaviors that actually I would rub my cuticles a lot until they would bleed, and we don't want that. I needed to find some additional resources so that I didn't make myself bleed. But if my sensory soothing behavior isn't harming me and isn't distracting anyone else, then it's working. We don't need to change it. Okay, on to our sensory diet. Sensory diet is where we set up different intense, in time, I guess, sensory experiences throughout the day. So we don't just make the whole environment more of a sensory experience. We focus sensory experiences at certain times. So for example, maybe right before school, we sit down with our child and we pop bubble wrap. This is a very great tactile activity. We can jump on it with our feet. We can try to pop it with our elbows as long as we're not wearing a big sweater. We want to be able to actually feel the textures. Also, we can play around with a brush. You can follow a brushing protocol if you wish. There are specific protocols available for your education online. I have not taken any courses in official brushing techniques, but I do know that there are lots of kids who feel very soothed, and in fact so do I, to just have a light brushing on their skin. So nice. You also might add something like this in there. Makes a really nice sound, number one, but also it's super shiny. These are wooden, but they're smooth, so they have a very nice texture to them. Very nice for sensory input. Again, we can play catch with various different kinds of balls that are bumpy, that are pokey, that are ridged or smooth. I have these in my art cabinet, and this is another activity that you can do during one of your sensory diet times. I take the balls that have these bumps and maybe a ball that has ridges, or you can tell this one has been used for art, or that one. And then we take the top to a box and we put paper in it, and then we drizzle paint. We put these balls in the top of the box, and then we tilt the box and shake the box to make the balls roll around, and they decorate the paper with their bumps. It's very cool. You can also, of course, do finger painting. It's a great experience for the tactile sensory system. Also, play with sand. You can play with it in a sand table, as I mentioned before, but you can also do art activities, very focused art activities during your sensory diet times. There are lots of art activities that you can do that are really good for tactile input. Think of anything where you'll be exposing kids' fingers to textures, whether they be smooth or bumpy. So I'm thinking putting glue on the paper and then sprinkling on cinnamon or sand or glitter. There's all sorts of fun experiences that can go along with art. Doing finger painting is great. Doing oil painting or watercolor painting is also great. But the more you can touch the paint or the art supplies, the better. Of course, get outside as much as possible. The outdoors, nature, is great for our sensory system. Think about touching tree bark, walking barefoot in the sand, or on pebbles, or on a sidewalk, or on the grass. Think about rolling in these things down the hill. This is great for lots more than just the tactile system also. Swimming can be really great because of the smoothing texture it has on the skin, but also for other reasons, which we'll discuss in upcoming videos. Even think of some of these outside things that you can bring inside and maybe do art with. I have a pond in the backyard, and we could take cattails and we could use those to roll in paint or make designs with in sand. We can use grass as part of our art. We a lot of times in my classroom, especially in the fall, take leaves and do rubbings with them. So you put the leaf on the table, and then you put a piece of paper over the top and you rub your crayon across it like this, and it makes a beautiful pattern. You can do the same thing with sandpaper, which is really fun. It feels really good on the fingers, and it makes a neat pattern too. Of course, it's extra fun if you have different grits of sandpaper. So you have one that is a very fine grit and one that's a little bit more coarse, so that the patterns look different, but they also feel different to the fingers. Also, don't prevent your kids from playing in mud, because mud offers a really interesting texture that very few other everyday things can provide. If your kids happen to like mud, you might want to make homemade Play-Doh. You might want to have your kid help you make cookies, especially the ones that you roll. You might want to make with your child a very special glue and applesauce and cinnamon recipe that you mix it all together. I'll put a link down below. You mix it all together and then you flatten it out, and then you stamp with a cookie cutter, and then you wait. What I do is I push a paper clip into the top, and then you wait 24 hours, you turn it over, you wait some more until it's dry all the way through, and then you can hang it up. And it's a sensory aroma blessing for the world. You can put it in your car as an air freshener. You can hang it in the child's room. You can put it in the bathroom to make your bathroom smell like cinnamon. It's delightful. And of course, you can add other spices should you wish to. So that is another great experience for getting the hands messy. This is kind of a weird one that I've never heard actually recommended anywhere else, but I know my brother and I did it when we were young. We'd take Elmer's glue, we'd cover our whole hand with it, and then we'd wait for it to dry, and then we'd peel it off. And it was an amazing feeling. I do have, where did it go? Aha. I also have tape. This is painter's tape, which is a little bit less sticky. So you could do the same thing with tape if your child wants to put tape all over her hand and then pull it off or just leave it on. That's a great sensory experience. Ah, that feels good. Ah, it smells good too, doesn't it? Ah. We should have taken your sweater off because it looks like it might droop in the shaving cream. That's okay. You can play too. It feels really good, and it smells good. Miss Kathy made a smiley face.
Well, I'm trying. Oh, there we go. It's a big nose too.
It's Pinocchio. Oh, look, you made some mountains here. Ah! I'm gonna show our friends how we clean up all of the shaving cream. Just a cup works so well. And it smells good in here. You could also provide sponges just to play with or to do artwork with. This one has one side that's a little more soft and another side that is pokey. You can have your child help you clean things, which is excellent for self-help skills as well as for sensory input. And you can also just use this as a plaything. So put real things like this in your child's play kitchen if your child has a play kitchen, or use it for real in your actual kitchen. That is also a great idea. Of course, you can put these things in your child's sensory toolbox if this is something you know that he or she enjoys. Don't forget soft, squishy animals. I have a moose. But you know there are lots of different, your child probably already has 1 million stuffies, and I don't know when they started being called stuffies. We always called them stuffed animals. It's not that much longer to say stuffed animals than stuffies, but okay, my nieces say stuffies, so stuffies it is. But your child probably already has lots of stuffies, but they are a great sensory experience to be able to squeeze them. If possible, have a wide variety of different textures. So this one's fuzzy. You might have another one that's a little bit pokey or one that's very firm. I have one that is one of the kinds that you put in the microwave and you can heat it up and then sleep with it. That has a very different texture and weight to it and resistance. So it's good to vary that to meet different portions of that need. You can also, of course, try one of my favorite things, which is a water bottle, a hot water bottle. I heat up water on the stove in a pan, and then I pour it in the hot water bottle, and then I warm my feet on it in the winter. Also, in fact, I have 2 cats on my couch right behind the camera, and they are both sleeping on a hot water bottle right now. It's good for everyone. They also have some that have fleece covers on them. Blankets are another good opportunity to add a variety of tactile input. For example, you can have a fleecy blanket, and then you can have a blanket that's kind of woolly, and then you can have a blanket that is woven. Then you can have a crocheted blanket out of yarn. There are so many different options of blankets, but it's a great opportunity to add variety. Now that you are thinking about textures and about tactile input for your child, or perhaps for yourself, what are some things you are going to add to your life, to your home, to your schedule, to benefit your family in a sensory way. I'm very curious. What will you do? I hope you have a wonderful day. Please do leave me a comment if you like this video. I would appreciate a thumbs up because then more people will find my videos and they can hopefully help their kids better, and we can all learn to understand the needs of those around us who may not be neurotypical. I hope you have a great day. See you back here soon with a new video.